Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. LeBron James with the rejection.
The final numbers on OKC's title defense: 4-8 against the Spurs, 7-14 against everyone else. 36.4% of their losses were to San Antonio this season. Home teams in Game 7 of the conference finals in the last decade? 0-5. I wonder if Chet Holmgren turns his basement lights off and then runs up the stairs because he's afraid Wemby might be behind him. And last but not least, back to where all this began. I understand Chet just want to hoop, but unfortunately, he's mentally going to have to participate in whatever this is Wemby got going on with him. He did not. He did not, and that turned out to be a big problem. We're going to talk about a lot today because I just had to go ahead and combine the Thunder What's Next video with talking about this fucking historic series we just saw, bro. I wanted to wait because I had so much more to say about this. Thunder Spurs genuinely felt like one of those series when I was a kid. You know, the ones that you see retrospectives of all the time, and you see people post on Twitter and say, why can't the NBA feel like this anymore? I think for kids today, and really just NBA fans in general, this would be the one that'll probably be posted for the next 10 years and people will go back and say, damn, why doesn't the NBA feel like this? It was one of those. And I wanted to acknowledge that in real time because I feel like, especially with the modern NBA, there's so many things we don't appreciate until it's in the history books and we're looking back at it nostalgically. So yeah, this was the first time that two teams with the best record went to a Game 7 since I think 2002 with the Kings and Lakers. That's the type of history we're talking about. A back and forth series, so many changes on both sides. And it's kind of why I started this off referencing my old tweet with Chet. Because, you know, Dom giveth, Dom taketh away. With both Wembanyama and Chet, I've given props and I've talked about the things that I felt were weak. And with Chet in Game 5, they did seem like they made an adjustment that had figured something out. The Spurs, and more particularly Victor Wembanyama, blew that shit up immediately. I don't know if I've seen pure 100% authentic hate of this manner. I guess since Skip Bayless had his one-sided beef with LeBron. Wemby just wasn't going out like that. And Chet, this is the reason that I said that he needed to participate mentally. And you remember I said when you get a tweet like that off on Twitter, it gets misconstrued. One of the only quote tweets I saw about it was someone saying, oh, it's not Chet's job, it's the MVP's job, and the point just right over your head. First of all, that's 100% right. Yeah, it should be the MVP's job, which I would say Shea did a pretty good job of that last night. But what you saw in Game 7 with Chet was the reason I singled him out for that, because Wemby chose him. He didn't choose Shea. He chose Chet. And while there was a good response in Game 5 where he stepped up and was the second option and was the guy who's going to be making $41 million next year, in the most important game of the season, it ran down his legs a little bit, a lot of bit, actually. He didn't look coordinated. He didn't look confident. He didn't want to attack. He didn't want to take his open shots. And most importantly, he could not join Shea, who needed one other star to come with him. And that's what Chet is paid as. He's J-Dub. We said it. I told you he wasn't going to be a part of this series. They carted him out there for whatever reason. They carted his corpse out there for Game 6. And so he didn't play Game 7. And it just goes back to sports being a mental game as much as it is physical. By the time we got to Game 7, Chet had never acknowledged really anything the Spurs were doing to him, not just Wemby. So Wemby put a battery in all their backs. I don't know if y'all noticed, but here's Devin Vassell now talking crazy to him. You've got Keldon Johnson and whoever else just going straight into his chest, pretty much calling him soft on defense. He got some blocks. There was times where he protected the rim, but the San Antonio Spurs just were, as a whole, we're trying to say we don't fear you. And by not ever participating in that side of this game, it set it up really bad to where he actually got taken out of Game 7 at a crucial moment. Because Wembanyama, remember we talked about free safety with Caruso, which by the way, the magnet ball finally wore off at the right time. Now Wemby is playing off of Chet, off of what is supposed to be the second option at this point. Mitch Johnson on the sidelines did not even trust that Chet would take or make an important shot. So Wemby is able to clog the paint. And then we get to the point after the game where reporter asks Chet about it. You can see the look on his face. He looks disgusted. But all he says is, well, you know, it's basically the Thunder's job to win a game. We're not trying to win 1v1 games. Once again, the pacifist route, which, look, this type of thing, I think I referenced a player who backs it up just with his play and doesn't really say much as Kawhi Leonard. But that's the thing. He backs it up with superstar level play. I guess same thing with Tim Duncan back in the day. He had a little trash talk that players report. He would just say very brief comments, but he didn't really do the rah-rah all the time, go back and forth with KG and such. But he backed it up with his play. I'm not putting Chet in the tier of Timmy or Kawhi, but he is being paid like a star. Matter of fact, we can go ahead and start there because you see, this was the 13 he was being paid this season. This is the 41 he will be paid. That will continue to go up. And you will notice that money is going up at the same time as J-Dub going from 6 to 41. And then it pretty much matches. Well, it doesn't match, but those are the two other huge contracts next to Shea. So yes, it is the MVP's job to go toe-to-toe with the other MVPs. But the other guys have to have some grit in these type of situations. They cannot completely fold all the way, both physically and mentally. And that's just what happened here. And you see the problem with that is now San Antonio and the Thunder, timeline-wise, should see each other multiple times down the road in the very near future. I've thought that before in the league and other things happen, right? Trades, teams fall apart, injuries, whatever. So maybe it won't. But in the case that it does right now, y'all are on that track. That's where it leads. And you've already got this one series where it went to 7, but they mentally dogged y'all. I pointed out at the very beginning of this series, I didn't like that OKC as a whole was just doing too much of the friendly shit with the Spurs. Props to Shea for telling the truth, but I think that was about the extent of what it needed to be, knowing they were probably going to be in the conference finals. It did not also need to be J-Dub and Chet following along with submissive or passive energy. J-Dub just kind of saying, hey, Wemby is messing this up for us. And then Chet not being able to find him. Not going to stay on it too much longer, but that mental part of the game is why you see certain role players in the league have that edge to them where they're in guys' faces and they're doing these little things, these intangibles, to stay in a matchup with someone they have no business being in the same conversation as. That is what I meant by that tweet. That is the part that Chet is missing. And now down the road, if y'all meet for the next 2 or 3 years, I mean, I don't know how you gain confidence back from this, but you know, years are a long time. So we'll see. Other than that, you're the Thunder looking at the future right now. Changes are in order. They just are. It didn't even take years for the Spurs to grow up and beat them. We cannot talk enough about how this was this core's first playoff run. This is Wembanyama's first playoff run. It cannot be stated enough how insane it is for this to happen on run number 1. When does this happen? Especially in modern history, right? Because if you go all the way back to times where just fucking anything was happening, Magic won the championship as a rookie, okay. He and Larry were doing a lot of insane stuff at a young age, but well, damn, that could mean a couple of things for Magic. It was a different era, okay? That was a different time. Kobe and Shaq together, that took them years. Mike had to wait on Pippen. LeBron had to go to a whole new team because his front office kept fucking off. KD and Russ never got over the hump. KD just said, you know what? I'm not retiring without any rings. I'm about to cheat. Year 1 of this core dethroning y'all, healthy or not, means there needs to be changes, because this is not a situation where you can just say, oh well, if we were healthy. Look, I know that's tempting, especially if you don't watch the all these games. It's a very tempting thing to say we were close in the game 7 and did not have J-Dub and did not have AJ Mitchell. I know that's tempting, but think about the matchup. I don't think matchup wise he adds enough of the right stuff to just assume they win this series with him. If you look at how they've been guarding Shea and why they made him struggle so much up to game 7, phone booth, not really trusting other players on the team, not trusting other shooters on the team. If you'll think back even to last run, Williams had a lot of good games at crucial moments, but there were also times where it didn't really feel like he was there, and so it could have gone either way. And the point I'm making is you don't want to rely on that anyways, because this is what I talked about in the Timberwolves video. It is just not a reasonable expectation in this era of the NBA to bank on your team being healthy this deep into the playoffs. It's not anymore, and it's not just the small guys or a second string guy. It could be your star at any given moment. That's just what it is. That's what it was this time. And the other problem is, like I have been saying for a long time, if San Antonio gets this done right now, they're getting it done with the early version of their core pieces, with the version of Wembanyama who is not a dead-eye sniper from 3. There's games where he just has it going, then there's sometimes he's a brick. There's sometimes he's not getting to his spot the way he wants. There's sometimes where he's not playing as fast as he should. There was a run in game 7 where it looked like the pressure of the champions being at home was getting to San Antonio. The Spurs looked young for a second. Castle is going to be a better shooter. Harper ended up really turning up towards the end of this series, but also he's going to get better. You could come back in 2 or 3 years and these guys who you were comfortable going under screens on, or you were saying maybe the Spurs can't depend on them to hit a bunch of threes yet or a bunch of shots or whatever it was on the board that made you more comfortable loading up on Wemby might not be a thing a couple years from now, and they are in the NBA Finals, and there's a very good chance they're going to win it. Now, the good thing is, one reason, and I made this main channel video a long time ago, it's one reason I called the Thunder the perfect team, not only because of the talent that I thought they had and the blend of talent, but it's their assets. Their contract contract situations, their picks, which we're going to talk about. But first and foremost, I think it has been known for a while there were going to be some changes. Isaiah Hartenstein has a team option for $28.5 million, which they were paying him this year. Same thing with Ludor, 18. I don't know how many of y'all knew. If you follow me, you maybe did, but AJ Mitchell, for all the value he's given him this year, was on $3 million, and it's only going to be on 2.8 the next, and then they'll have a team option in 28. So very interested to see what ends up happening here, because assuming he stays on this trend line, by 2029, he's probably going to be able to command a way different number. He's 23 years old, which means with these being the 2 remaining years, depending on whatever else happens, they might deal with this early. It's because down the road you might not be able to fit him. And yeah, down the road, Jared McCain is very obviously probably going to command some more money as well. But the beautiful part about the Thunder situation is they don't run into the same wall that a lot of teams have, where you can see some bad or potentially uncomfortable conversations coming up. They not only have the pieces to swap and the players to swap, look at this fucking pick bank, bro. How did this even happen? At this point, I do want to acknowledge that the draft rules have changed, which I've been waiting to really speak on that when I do these, because it was just unclear what was actually going to happen. But yes, I'm sure a lot of you have heard by now that they are basically punishing teams for being bad, and there's a lot of weirdness going on now with deals that teams have already made and how this is going to affect the future. But having a ton of picks to play with is still a better situation than not having them. That hasn't changed. So for now, because Utah's pick fell to number 2, they're not going to get this. They are, however, picking 17 from Philadelphia. They've got their own, and not shown here, they're also picking 12th from the Clippers. Then next year, they have swap rights with the Clippers, and then they have Denver's, which is protected 1 through 5. Gonna go out on a limb and assume Denver will not be picking that high. But then also, this is what I'm talking about with the rules. I actually don't know. Oh, this is hilarious. San Antonio protected 1 through 16 and 27. I'm really not about to read through all of these. You can if you want. The point is they have flexibility. That's really all I want you to take from this. I mean, my goodness, bro. Like, is Sam Presti bribing these dudes? Well, like Shay said, he is going to let the best general manager in the business get to work, and he's got to get to work. Now, one thing, I feel like I come onto these videos and say the same thing almost for every team in terms of if they are somewhere near, or they have been somewhere near the Giannis conversations, those are about to heat back up. And I feel like that's been the joke all season. Anytime the Thunder have been close to losing is, all right, don't make him call Giannis. But now here's my question about that. Because immediately they start saying you build this out with Chet Holmgren and picks and some other type of combos, but is it crazy to think that Chet Holmgren is just one of those players that looked a certain way and he has certain expectations and he played just good enough to get this type of contract, but he's probably not really going to be worth it? There are a lot of guys out there like that. And for Milwaukee, who's looking to, you trade Giannis, you're probably looking to restart. They don't really have anything to just build onto right now as we speak. Are you starting that with Chet on an increasing $40 million annual contract? Or are there going to be better offers out there? Really, that is a good question. Are they? Because you just saw the pick bank. Realistically, though, probably at this point gearing up to play the San Antonio Spurs for the future. Because again, you saw the stat that I read at the beginning. They were very good against every other team. They were very good against the entire league, and San Antonio, just as Shay said, was better than them. One team making up 33% of your entire year's losses is insane. So those are your ops. And to go against your ops, Shay, he needs a couple of things. He needs more space. He needs more reliable secondary stars, in my opinion. The thing to me about J-Dub getting now 40 annually and Chet the same is that neither one of them really feel like those type of guys. And I know that sounds crazy given J-Dub has 40-point games in the finals. He did show up at times last year, but there was also times where, like I said at the beginning of the video, he didn't feel like a consistent second superstar next to Shay. And that's also what I was saying at the beginning, is even if he was there, I watched teams last year zone against the Thunder. I watched them still try to key in on Shay and just gamble on that 50-50 J-Dub game. And I think that's what the Spurs would have done here too, and it might have worked and it might not have. It took them 7 a couple of times last year. So Giannis is going to be one of the names making noise on the market this summer. I'm thinking Evan Mobley might, but then again, it looks like the Cavs might be in position where they just run it back, so who knows. And I saw that one reported by The Athletic, just kind of connecting Mobley to the the Thunder. That's another guy that's going to be getting paid a ton and probably won't reach that potential in that number, but I could see the reasoning behind it. It does feel likely that both of these guys, or at least one of them, is on the move for sure. They're not about to just pick up 28 million. I think this team, with the luxury tax penalties, that seems like something that's just kind of been known. So whether it's a different deal or he's a part of a trade, this will likely be declined. And at this point, I would just go a different direction than Lu Dort anyways. His 3-point percentage came way down this year, and that ended up being an issue. He was one of the reasons last year teams would zone up and test, and he was hitting at a way better rate last year too, but all season it was down this year, and by the time you were in the playoffs, it's just like nobody cared. So especially given the variety of wings they have, the variety of options, yeah, Lou, you can definitely do with not paying him the 18, and you can also do with really not having him on the team anymore. I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the move. But regardless, you are still in a great place. I know you did get your chain snatched this year, but you were still better than pretty much the other 99% of the league consistently. So aside from the changes coming here, I really just think it comes down to if there is an opportunity to move Chet that makes sense. And basically you hope to come into 2027 with more trusted space for Shai Gilgeous, or more trusted secondary star, or hopefully both. And I do believe they have the assets to get one or both done. But yeah, shout out to San Antonio. This is not their video, although it kind of should be, but I can't figure out another time when I'm going to get a what's next for the Thunder video out that is actually going to make sense. So huge shout out to them for getting it done, especially getting it done this early, and the bounce backs again. Wemby taking that chance of not showing up to the press conference in a game he kind of got taken out of, and then straight up dominating the next two. Legendary shit. And unfortunately for the Thunder, they have to deal with that in their backyard for a long time. So let me know what you thought about this series, the Thunder's future, and like I said, we've got a couple days off now, so there will be more videos on the channel, and I will get around to Spurs Knicks either the day before that series or the day of that series. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe while hitting the bell next to my name if you want notifications every time a new video drops. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.